The Knight's Legends, written by Caleb Schreiber. Read by the author. 487 AD. This was the peak of the Dark Ages. Spreading through the majority of Western Europe was a deadly disease. Its effects were that of visual hallucinations, anxiety, and vertigo. The knight Merrick, who was the first known with this disease, called ergotism, saw the world immensely different from what you or me would perceive it to be. He saw day and night change with no consistency. He saw wars take place between people that the natural world never knew. To him, the happenings of his kingdom were overseen by beasts. The gates of the castle were guarded by birds and fish. Not a week passed before the lords of the land saw fit to seize him and detain him in his own home. The premises of his home was guarded both at the front and the back. He was in total isolation. In the days to come, the knight Merrick impatiently awaited the day of his freedom. A day that would never come. At night, he would dream of wondrous tales, all of which he would immediately write down whenever he awoke. All of these records were hidden and a secret from all but one, his wife. Upon the death of Sir Merrick, his wife brought forth a series of journals, and he told the stories to her children. These tales came to be known as the Knight's Legends. Chapter 1. It was a gorgeous day in Zaris. Spring had just rolled in, destroying every trace of winter. The kingdom of Zaris was known for its great weather. It was almost always peaceful and calm, but at the same time full of life. The people in Zaris displayed the same characteristics. All were warm, kind, welcoming, gentle people. No problems, crimes, or quarrels ever even saw the light of day in Zaris. It was a spotless kingdom. You could almost call it perfect. The king did everything in his power to maintain its perfection. The king was mighty, but not arrogant, not rude, not selfish, not unfair, not a liar, not evil or even mean in the slightest bit. He was a king that was respected by everyone, and he in turn respected them in the same manner. Although he was of noble blood, he did not live in a castle, nor use any of his position to spoil himself. He lived among the common people as if there was no difference between them. The only things he used his power for was to make decrees when needed, and to build a castle in the very middle of the kingdom. Not for himself, but for his one and only daughter. Sarah was her name. She was just as noble, honest, kind, humble as her wise father. Everything she did succeeded, and the kingdom prospered due to her judgment. She was also the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. Her hair like tall brown wavy grass that sways in the field. Her eyes like the ocean, calm and peaceful, but at the same time strong and powerful. Her cheeks were like meadows, full of grace and color. Her lips like ivory, her neck like a monument. Her hands like a baby, but arms strong as an ox. She was perfect. Her parents had raised her to be this way. The princess's hand was asked for by many princes and simple men alike, but her heart longed for one. She didn't know who yet, but she knew he was out there somewhere, in the land that she looked at every day. Till the day he would come, she would wait in Zaris, and in the meantime grow in the arms of her father. "And the decorations and banners are almost ready for the celebration," said James, the king's right-hand man. The whole kingdom was preparing for Princess Sarah's 20th birthday, which is but 2 days away. "Excellent, James, and is this being kept a secret from the princess?" "All of your faithful subjects have been informed of the secrecy of the matter upon their invitation, my lord." "Excellent. I'm excited to see the face of my daughter whenever she finds out. My deepest thanks go to you, James, for helping me pull all of this together." "The pleasure has been all mine, your majesty. I share in your excitement for the upcoming events. The princess is so blessed to have a father such as you, your grace." "And the Lord God has blessed me with you, a dear friend and an assistant to help me guide her in her upbringing, especially after the death of her mother," said the king with gratefulness. The smile on James's face showed that the way that he felt was undeniably the same. The respect between these two was evident in the way that they interacted with each other. During the invasion of the army of Abaddon on Zaris, that caused the death of many in the kingdom, including the queen, the bond between the king and James became strong. Ever since that disaster, the kingdom has become stronger, humbler, more powerful than any other kingdom under the great sky. I believe the whole kingdom is ready for the celebration, James. I agree, sir. I wholeheartedly agree. Birds made a ruckus as something made a hasty exit from the forest. The cause of all of this commotion was the horse and his rider, bolting through the woods like lightning striking the highest peak. The yaws of the horsemen were deep and piercing. All of these sounds were poetry. And like a cannon blast, they, the horse and his man, burst through the wooded lair. For the first time that morning, the couple saw daylight. The black, mud-stained, shrub-torn jacket of the rider was bathed in light as it flapped behind the both. The daylight seemed to almost give the two the energy that they needed. Their journey ended 7 miles ahead of their present position, at a house just inside the princess's castle gates. Upon their arrival at the gates, the rider was greeted by a tall man with clothing of the same condition. "Trayman, my good friend, how was the patrol of the outer lands?" "'Twas nothing to stir excitement, my dear Vinci. Your pretty little head shouldn't fret a bit." The chuckle was exchanged between the two friends as they stepped inside the house. "Could you keep it down, you two?" Xander, who was in the center of the room, said this, scolding them. "Since when have you known us to keep things down, Xander?" "Unfortunately, never. If only you could do the same with your drinking." The trio burst into laughter. "If we were only men of the habit, this would be true, my friend." "Oh, on the contrary. If we were men of the habit, the 3 of our jobs would be terminated, seeing that the focus of our job is mainly the latter hours." The 3 partook in a long silence, just taking in the peace and quiet of the moment. Through all of the planning of the princess's party, these 3 men were the only watchmen of the castle. They were set in charge of doing all in their power to ensure the safety and the order of the preparations. A sigh came from Xander, who had not moved from the center of the room. The dark shadows and under his eyes now became evident to Trayman and Vinci. For Xander had been on patrol throughout all of the night, without a wink of rest. "You must be getting home, my friend." "We can take it from here," said the two with complete understanding for Xander's exhaustion. It had been a tiresome couple of days for all of them. Xander waved and bid his farewells to the two, and began to walk down the stone street to his home. This had been a tradition ever since he was appointed guard of the princess's castle only a few years ago. He would walk home, with his arms keeping to the same pace as his legs, and sing a tune that his mother used to sing to him as a child. "'Tis the mighty power of the Most High God and King. Forever we adore thee, the angels in the sky will sing. Your glory shines upon the earth. You are our all in all, our victory in our Savior. He will reign forevermore." Suddenly, a loud crash came from the tree above. Xander quickly looked and stood in confusion as the black silhouette screamed with all of its might as it fell. Moreover, before understanding began to flood his head, the figure brought him down to the stone-paved ground with a loud and hardened crash. Black. All Xander saw was black. Was he dead? Was he having an out-of-body experience? He attempted to move his toes. Those were still in working order. His focus now went to his fingers. Yes, those were fine as well. He was still on the stone-paved street. He could grab hold of the gravel and move it, he was sure of this. Then he came to the realization that there was something still smothering his body against the hard ground. He made every effort to pry the blur off of him. He made one gentle push, and it, or he, or she, came off without much trouble. It fell off of his face and into his arms. He sat up, catching the glare of the burning sun. The yellow light still blocking his vision began to fade. He began to take in the surroundings. On his right side was a branch that had cleanly broken off of the tree from alongside the road. A small pile of leaves to his left, and in his arms was a girl. A young woman, actually. He turned the body so that he could see the face of the lady. He gently placed one arm around her side and the other to support her head. Before he was appointed guard of the castle, he had some practice in medicine and knew how to respond in an emergency situation. It had long since been the time where he had to use this knowledge in the field, but nevertheless, some of the safety precautions were still engraved in him. Upon the tilt of her head, he realized that what had fallen from the tree was not any ordinary thing. It was Princess Sarah herself. With her still in his arms, he stood up and made haste to the nearest physician's house. It was still dawning hour, so the streets were still clear. Xander was able to make a straight shot to Lord Cornell's home. He and Xander were appointed to their duties at the castle on the same day. He appointed directly by the king himself to supervise the health and safety of the princess and her staff. Xander entered into the house of Lord Carnell's and eased the princess into the table at the center of the room. "Carnell, come quickly! The princess isn't responsive!" The sound of crashing pottery and pounding footsteps descended a staircase from the upper level. He emerged from the back room in a whirlwind of hurry. The look on his face showed that he understood the urgency of the situation. The process of examinations, checkovers, and evaluations proceeded. Nervous minutes went by. The thoughts that flooded Xander's head were thoughts of the kingdom without its future queen, or even what the king would do to the man who was connected with his daughter's death. Yes, it is true that he's merciful, but how far can compassion be stretched? The kingdom is still only human, but still even yet it's the princess. He was doing everything in his power to save her life. She's going to be fine, young Xander. Carnell could clearly see the extent of Xander's fear for the situation. Why don't you go home and rest, Xander? I know you've been up for many hours. I can manage the princess from here on my own. Much thanks to you, Carnell. There's not much you can do anyway. You have done your part. I'll do mine. Go home. She sat up in her bed, suddenly awakened from a long night's rest. Usually a maid would wake her up, or her father himself. But today, she woke up on her own. This is not of much importance, other than the simple knowledge that this was out of the ordinary, especially whenever the sun was on the brink of rising. The night before, she was with a handful of her friends, talking and making an utter fool of themselves, as they had not had this opportunity in quite some time. In such a small kingdom, it left for not many friend-making opportunities, but enough to count. The four girls had known each other since a young age. Anyways, the sun had just barely risen. She could feel the sun's rays that beamed through the window pane. The glass was almost non-existent. The view of the kingdom seemed to spill into the bedroom and fill every crevice. It was breathtaking. Sarah, having some time before breakfast would be served in the dining hall, had a thought come across her mind. Why not go to the kingdom and enjoy the morning before the afternoon rush? So she did. And to make it more exciting, she did so not by street, but by air. She threw the covers back and jumped out of bed. She rushed to the balcony beyond the windows and began to mount a tree branch that was near in proximity. She had done this many times before. In fact, she showed her friends the previous night. What a rush she would get from sneaking about. From tree to tree, she climbed like a squirrel with purpose and zeal. Oh, the fond memories that this always brought. Whenever she was a little girl, the men of the kingdom and her father were building the small castle for the princess. During the construction, she would do the same, climb from tree to tree, as if it was her own route to anywhere in the land. Every branch that she chose held weight in her memory. I saw a blue herring from that branch some time ago. I had a conversation with one of the townspeople for hours off of that branch. All of these memories played through her thoughts as if she was seeing them in real time. Stealthily, she made her way to the most beautiful view in the kingdom of the oncoming sunrise. She eased down onto a branch and rested against the old smooth trunk of the tree. She looked out across the land and surveyed the beauty of the arising sun. The red-orange glow of the landscape illuminated the branches and the leaves above her. Closing her eyes and taking a long breath, she soaked in the essence of the new morning. What a difference it makes to one's happiness to approach moments like this. It would break the man who did not enjoy this serenity, she thought to herself. The birds had just begun to sing a lovely song, so pure that it almost sounded human. The tune was classic, one she had heard whenever she was a babe. Sinking deeper into the trunk of the tree, she listened to the song. Everything was perfect. Gently, Sarah's eyes started to flutter open, not because she wanted to, but because she realized something. The tune was getting louder. The words were now being sung. The voice was pretty and not threatening, just simply unexpected. She leaned over the branch to see the originator of the music. Then, a sudden crash took her by surprise, and down she came to the ground beneath her, black. All she saw was black.